Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dice Up the Classroom. I am Ryan Reed. Today I have a fun little project going on. I was at an end camp this weekend here, which is, of course, a nice little local event that some schools run to do everything from tutorials with different peers and teachers on everything from iOS to Windows to Google Classroom and more. Well, I was talking to a couple of teachers, and a few of them were saying, it'd be kind of cool if I could, make an iPad a lot like a Chromebook because they love the iPad, but they like some of the stuff you can do in a Chromebook. So I created this 2-to-1 iPad, and what's so great about this 2-to-1 iPad is it does a nice little combination of the Google Apps for Education mixed in with iOS. Now, I just want to tell you this. This is the main layout I have created for this iPad. It is officially what I call the 2-to-1 iPad. iOS meets Chrome for Google. And what the difference is here, I've done the main setup here within the utilities, social, tools, search, Google Classroom, regular classroom, productivity apps, review apps, and photography. Now, the great news about this is I still have over 7 gigs of data set, so you can actually tailor your iPad if you want to follow this model to whatever you want, if you have to add apps for science or chemistry or math and so forth. But this will give you a really great view which hits the main points here. This is great for elementary right up to high school, and I'm going to get going. So let's kick up with the utilities first. When you kick up to the utilities, I pretty much separate these to the main utility apps. App Store for updates, settings to change, videos for downloads, the iTunes Music Store, the newsstands if you do local magazines for classroom, InstaShare if you need to wirelessly share any pictures, data, or documents. Of course, the music, the clock app, and of course, find your iPhone app. So that way, if this ever gets lost, you can actually find it. And then I put the tips over next door. Now, some of the tips actually are pretty good for iPad. I know there's a feature coming up where you might be able to disable that at some point, but we'll get there. Now, moving on to a social network here, I'm actually going to talk about how this works. Now, the social network right here is perfect here because, I have messages and FaceTime, and at the bottom I have contacts and Game Center. So the instant messaging is left on so students can communicate if they need to, SMS or FaceTime, because I find that very great for collaboration and group time. And of course the contacts are here, and of course if you do gamification here, you keep all your data in the Game Center, which is great. Now, adding in for the Google part, as you can see, I've added Google Plus on here. Now this is great because a lot of classrooms who use Google Apps for Education, especially in Chromebooks, like to set up a social Google Plus classroom to share with different peers, classrooms, and other networks so they can tailor it. And what happens is it works great with Google Hangouts. So instead of doing Skype or anything, you can go right to the Google Hangouts, hook up with students' Gmail, and so forth. And the same goes for YouTube, where they can go to the YouTube channel. Now, I've added 2 very interesting things here, Google News and Remind. And for Google News, it's pretty self-explanatory. You're doing local events, you need to do a bell ringer or a doorbuster where you want to do some local events, pop it up in a social studies classroom. You can look it up, summarize it in one of the other productivity apps from notes to pages, and send it to the teacher. But Remind works great, especially for students who are on the Remind network. My entire elementary uses Remind beautifully. They can send the messages, homework reminders, upcoming events, social network shares, and it works great on Remind, and it's free to set up. So I highly recommend, if you're going to do a 2-to-1 iPad, you get Remind, you get it set up in your classroom. You can check that out over at remind.com. And then moving away from that, of course, I'm going to talk about my bottom main bridge apps here. Now, why this is not like a one-screen iPad, I did decide to put on the main set of apps here. Notes goes without saying because you can do notes, and of course, it can open in other apps such as Pages and Evernote, whatever is done by the students. Now, as you can see, I left both the Gmail and the regular mailing app on here. Now, the reason why is why the Gmail app works great, as you can see, for labels, sending, stars, and setup, as you can see by my email, and you can of course customize them with your setup and everything. The reason why I left that up here on the regular mail app is, if you know, sometimes when students send keynotes, pages for other classmates to work on, or teachers, sometimes the Gmail app isn't really good of opening those in another app. This way, if you go right to the mail app here, you can actually open these up to where you can save and send it up as a force quit to either open it into another app, save the image of it, or add to the reading list, or copy it to put into another document. You can't quite do that with the Gmail iOS app, and that's why I've kept both on here. and that's why it works so well. So I highly recommend you get both the Gmail and the Mail. You get the Gmail for the nice streaming of everything for your Google Mail and labels, but then you can take care of your third-party apps or first-party apps here with your Mail by force touching and open them in those documents. So that's why they're both there. Now the browsers you can see are exactly the same way. The reason why I kept Safari and Chrome is for Chrome you can backdoor to any of your Google Apps for Education Classroom apps, including Google Draw, or if you want to, you can share and copy into third-party apps with Safari. As we know, you can open those up in Pinterest, Google Docs, email the documents straight from Safari to another classmate, and that's why I kept that, and I'll go into that a little bit more when I look into my review app shortly. Pandora is great because you can do free. It's great just to turn on the background. It's great for students. A very teach like a pirate or tech like pirate, as you can see over in the side corner here. And you can select the mood. And also, if you want to make sure students are setting up, you can set up the accessibility to do it so they can listen to the Pandora music certain ways off your network. So that's why Pandora is there. This is more for environmental and everything, and I find it works really well for students. And I've seen a lot of students who use Chromebooks who have Spotify or another type of app third party working in the background for music just to set the mood. So that's why I have that. Now, moving on to tools right here, as you can see. I've actually gone with the basics. First of all, calculator for iPad, pretty self-explanatory. But then I've gone with calculator and free graphing calculator. And the reason why is because my script calculator works great because you can draw out the various different types of equations, as I'm going to go into here. It works with a wonderful grid app here that you can also share. So I can actually go in here, I can make a fraction, let it reset, and as you can see I get my answer. And of course if I want to, I can do it this way as well and get my answer. And then if I want to, I either can trash it, move back, or of course I can hit the share arrow and export it out with some other apps. And now, as you can see right now, I can just email this out. If I want to do it with the more apps, I can set this up for a device clipboard. If I want to do copy, or as you can see here, I can turn on my other apps it's shareable for. And this is great. Let's say they want you to do your work and see if you're writing everything out. You can now export this perfectly to a classmate, put in your Google Note, or Evernote, so you can share this with another network, or you can even turn it as an assignment in Google Classroom. And I'm going to actually show you how that works here really quick here, just as an example. I'm just going to go right to the Google Classroom, and it'll switch over in a second. And right here it'll ask, are you absolutely sure? I say, yeah, it's great. And it's going to look into my different assignments if I have any up in any classroom. And as you can see, it doesn't have any. But if this was a course perfectly used right now in a math classroom as an assignment, I could import my data right from my script calculator right into Google Classroom. It works a lot for GMath for documents, which is a nice add-on for Chromebooks. Right now, there's not one that works on iOS, but it's a great subsidiary to do that if you can't use the add-ons in Google Docs like you would on a Chromebook or a regular laptop computer. So that's why I use my scripts. Going out of that, free graphing calculator is pretty simple. You can use a paid one or one. It doesn't really matter. Now, as you can see, I have Podcast and Cam Scanner on here. Now, Cam Scanner is pretty self-explanatory. If I have a document or anything I need to scan and work on that I can mess around in another app such as Notability, or I need to use it for my own notes for my Google Drive, I can scan it, and Cam Scan works great on iOS. It's a fantastic scanning app. I think it's actually better than ones you can find on Chromebook, so I highly recommend it. Aurorasma is fantastic, of course, for augmented reality, for everything from homework to assignments. I highly recommend that. I'm not going to go into it. Now, the reason why I have Puffin on here is because even though many websites are switching over to HTML5, which can be read perfectly on Chrome and Safari, there still are websites that have Flash. With the Puffin, I don't have that problem. So if I'm sending them to a math learning setting website or one that does require still a Flash reading browser, I have Puffin that I can go in, pop in my address, and away we go. So that's why Puffin's on here, and it works perfectly in the tools here. It's not taking up any room in the main Bridge apps, but then I have it here if I have any websites that have Flash on it, and it's worth the price because you can get it for $1.49 on VPP. Podcasts, of course, works really great too, because if you download any podcasts you want to listen to for students or homework, they can just download it right in the app, subscribe, and they're off and running through their Gmail account. So that's why Podcast is on Tools. Moving away from that, I'm going to go to my search engines. Now, search, as you can see, is pretty self-explanatory here. I did both Apple and Google Maps for various reasons, especially because Google Maps and Google Earth work wonderful together when you're looking for a locale, you're doing geography or social studies projects, they can work great. And then instead of going through Chrome or anything else, I have the Google search here ready to go with voice recognition, which is great, and you can actually play certain things through both Maps, both Apple and Google Earth. That's why Google search is on here, and it works really good in case you're having a problem with Google Drive or anything. But now moving over here, I have QR After and I have Delicious. Now QR After, you don't have to use it. I like using it because it can filter websites I send my students to so they don't get any problems, or if it detects any issues, versus Enigma, which works as a great skipping app for QR scanning. But that's why that. Now Delicious, the reason I have Delicious, I have constantly had students say, I wish I could have bookmarked that website. I couldn't do it. I didn't have EduClipper. I was on my home computer. Well, with Delicious, they can bookmark those apps and set them up. That way, no matter if they're at a home computer, a different computer, on somebody else's iPad, they can set that up in Delicious and they can sign up for free through their Gmail account. And then this way, any bookmarks they find or ones the teachers want to send to them to work on websites, instead of getting constantly posted on Edmodo or Google Classroom, they go right to Delicious, and there are all their bookmarks to open up and use on their browser. That's why I have Delicious on here, and I highly recommend using that. Now that I've actually gone over the main tool apps, I'm now going to get into the heart and soul of the classroom apps. So first of all, Google Classroom. This is pretty self-explanatory, especially with the Google Apps work. With Google Drive, I have everything set up. I will see my classroom folder if there is one if I'm in Google Classroom, and then of course if I need to work on documents, forms, or sheets, or take care of a PowerPoint, I got it right here in Slides. Now here's the great thing about that. As of the recording of this, Slide does not allow you to put in images. But as we know, if we go into Keynote, which is in my productivity apps for the iOS iWorks app, I can create a PowerPoint that I can upload directly to my Google Drive, and then I can play it in Google Slides, and there are my images and all that ready to go. And this way, I take care of that problem, not being able to put in certain transitions or be able to take care of certain images that aren't loading correctly into my Google Slides here for my PowerPoint presentation. So that's why I have that there. Now here's the next trick. I have Sunrise. Sunrise is a great free app that you can sync across Google Calendar, iCalendar, and other apps, including Facebook to Twitter to Google+. And I'll show you what's so great about that. I've always had people talking to me about they wish they could do the Google Calendar a little better. The apps doesn't quite do what it was, and they don't want to do a paid app. The one thing that's great about Sunrise is how it syncs over. And as you can see, I have all my different ones here. I have my major holidays here listed. I have the Google Setup calendar for ACE Prep. I have a unit up here for Pi Day. As you can see, I have dances and stuff. And this is great for students because then what happens is if they do a main setup here, you can adjust it however you want, is they can hit in a date here. And right here, you can put in the title, tell if it's all day, very similar to the iCalendar, and it's going to hook up with your Google Calendar perfectly and sync it and add it. And I'm just going to add in just a little test one just to show everybody here. And I'm just going to leave it right there. Hit add for the 24th. There is my test. And if I go out of this, and I go into my regular one under my regular classroom folder here, and I pull back, as you can see, it is currently updating, and boom, there it is. And then this way, if I went into anything else too, whether it's the main Google Classroom through Chrome or anything, or look into my Google Calendar, thanks to Sunrise, I've now perfectly synced it across the board. And this is fantastic. You can change the settings to include visible calendars, set up your main Google, you can add accounts here, everything. And it's really nice. You can take care of your notifications right here, as you can see, and put it up with national holidays, and you can fix your preferences here. So I highly recommend, if you want to do a sync here, is to get Sunrise app. It's free and it works across multiple platforms and multiple apps. So I highly recommend that. Now, going right from Google Classroom to regular Classroom, as you can see, I've set this up to be really nice. First of all, I've done this as a main productivity in the classroom. I have the Postits Plus because Postits are still constantly used. There are still notebooks, there are still cards. If you do teach like a pirate classroom, Post-it Plus is great to have because you can just pop it in and do it. And I'll do a quick little example here. And I'll hook that over. I will capture my board here. And I'm going to hit my button. I'm going to do some adjustments here. I'm going to do a very nice little favorite one here from my favorite psalm. I'm going to hit done there. And then I'm going to hit this other one I have already taken a picture of. Done there. And I'm going to create my board. I'm going to allow that, and then I'm going to want to add to this. I'm going to regroup it. I'm going to fix my images. And then if I want to, I'm going to take some more pictures of it. And let me say I want to get this nice little one right here. It recognizes it, add to the board. I'm going to merge them. And then I'm going to adjust it. And then I'm going to get out of it. And as you can see now, I can adjust these Post-its. And what's so great about this too is then if I want to, I can use the Share. I can share the board. I can go into any of my apps to do it. I can even do a notes, classroom stuff, a little different ideas. I can readjust these if I want to put them in different order. Let's say I'm doing a matching game and the teacher or other students have done a matching and you want to reorganize these. You can upload right to the Google Classroom or set it on your Share. Or if you want to work in partners, you can go right into Insta Share. Or if you want to do constant notes here, you can put it right in Evernote. It is great to use. And if you want to, you can even export the board out and do it in different formats, PDF, Excel, and all that. And it's just great. So I highly recommend you do Post-its Plus. Edpuzzle and ThingLink work great for flipped classrooms. We do flipped classrooms with ThingLink, embedding videos and all that and posting it for the students. Edpuzzle, pretty simple. Just do the videos and all that from everything from Khan Academy, YouTube. It's great, and then the students can be monitored here. This way they can log in. And then as you can see, I have everything set up between Edmodo, Nearpod, and KidBlog. KidBlog, especially for my Genius Hours, works great because then the kids can do their social networking and set it through their classrooms and share that. They can set their reminders like, oh yeah, remember today I have a quiz third hour. They can hit that and then send it across, of course, to their other calendars right here in Sunrise or other ways. Nearpod works great for that way, the interactive lessons for the teachers, so that way they can go right in here. If you have the paid version, you can then assign the homework here perfectly, and you can upload it right here to Edmodo. So, you know, you can turn in your assignments, you can read your assignments right here. I can go to Edmodo. I can go to my groups. I can read if there's any assignments in there. And then I can download anything, go to my library items, and I can download these, read these, open these up in different apps such as Pages, Google Docs, or Reciterary if I have any problems, and go right into Google Classroom so that way they can work almost seamlessly with each other. So that's why I have both Google Classroom and regular Classroom. This doesn't matter if you use Edmodo or Schoology or Hypera. You can just merge them together so that way you can take the full advantage of your Google Drive as well as your regular digital classroom and almost go completely paperless and work it because you can post links directly from Classroom into Edmodo and vice versa. You can do loads up and everything and do discussion here in Edmodo and do the rest in Google Classroom. So that's why I have that there. And then going to productivity apps here. Now, as you know, Pages, Keynote, Numbers, pretty self-explanatory. They work great. You can put together a spreadsheet, numbers, upload to the Google Classroom or right into Google Forms. Same thing with PowerPoint, as I just explained. Pages, pretty self-explanatory. They're doing your own Word documentation. And then as you can see, I've explained everything in Stick Around and Poplet. Now, this is a reason why. Now, Explain Everything is great because you can incorporate everything from any of these apps in iOS right into Explain Everything, have students do creation of screencasts for homework assignments, reviews, and so forth, and even do them right into Stick Around and do the puzzle. Now, here's the one trick I wanted to show you. I have Paper here. I love Paper for sketchnoting, but I also love Notability because it allows me to do a smash book. I can put recordings, other pictures, and everything right in here. I'm going to show you how this works. So first, I'm going to go into Paper. especially now. Paper is now completely free with all the tools and everything. It is a great app. So I'm going to go right in here into the notebook as an example. So I'm going to go right here into my color blend. So that looks beautiful. I've made my adjustments. I am now going to share this, save it to my camera roll. Say OK. It's saved to my camera roll. Wonderful. So now I've got my color blends. I'm going to go into Notability. Because one thing about Notability, it works on all platforms, iOS, everything. And what I can do right here is I can actually do some adjustments. So I can take the welcome, I can move that over, I can get out of that, I can add a picture if I want to, I can go to my photos, recently added, there's my blend. I can reshape this, I can move this over, I can make some adjustments, and then of course I can even make some final tools right here. And then once I make all these adjustments, as you can see, I can record a voice note, I can move things, I can highlight very important notes right here, or whatever. But then I can, of course, hit the share arrow. And the share arrow is going to tell me right there what I can upload. As you can see, I do have a share ability. If I go to the main share, it will look, what do you want to do here? I can put in paper, I can do recordings, I can make it as a PDF, and I can send them out. But let's say I'm taking all this, I'm going to turn it as an assignment, I've made my sketch notes, I've made my screencasts and everything, and I just want to do my backup. I just share it right to Google Drive. I hit it, I turn it on, I say how I want it to look like, and I just send it to Google Drive. It gives me a second to load if I have not logged in before, so I'll log in. It is now uploaded to my Google Drive. I can exit out of this. I can go right to my drive. And there's my notes and the PDF to do whatever I want to them. I can share these out to the classroom. I can open them in another app to work in, and it's up to me. But this way I can do that if I want to. I even keep them on, as you can see. And then, of course, I can do a final one and say, hey, you know what? I want to do that because I want to make sure those notes are really cool. I will put them in Evernote, and it will send it right to Evernote. And we're done. And that's the reason why I love having both paper with Notability. You can make all your sketch notes and work right into paper. You can import it into Notability. You can use this as a note-taking, add vocal and pictures and text, and then of course you can send it right to your Evernote and save, or you can put it through one of the other apps or everything and work that. Poplet works great for mind mapping, and I can export it out to explain everything, or stick around, and I can use stick around to make reviews, put notes, and I can put that right into my Google Drive, and then I can share that with the classroom teacher. I can set it with my classmates to download through either the Google Drive or just scan a QR code I can make right there in Google Chrome and send it on off. That is why I have these little ones here. And then finally, as you can see, if I want to take care of my photography, I've got that all set here. I love to marry the two with both Photoshop, iPhoto, and Snapseed. This way I have my photos set up in my Google Drive. I can do some edits in iPhoto, set up as little digital portfolios, and then I can do any final ones in Photo Express, and then I can do a lot of planning here. I can film them using movies. I highly recommend also, if you do any green screen work, to get doing green screen. That way you can download it and have your green screen effects and edit in iMovie. You got Pic Collage, and of course ChatterPix. This one is the social sharing ChatterPix here, so that way I can make different videos, reviews, and everything, and send them to my teachers in Google Classroom or Edmodo. And then finally, everybody, here, you can take it or not, this is my review app. So if I got tests, I got quizzes, I just want to go over a little stuff, I can put together flashcards. The teacher, classroom teacher, can put together things in Quizlet. You can then access them perfectly and reassemble them in A+ Pro. You can do some exports and do Sketch here for minor notes from both Google Classroom, paper, you name it. And then, of course, I can do some drag and dictation for some voice notes, or I can use GarageBand and record my whole lecture. I can upload that right to my Google Drive. I can send that into a voice note into Notability. And, of course, I got Khan Academy and iBooks for, if you have ebooks for classroom or you want to do some reviews for math class. And then if I want to make my own review sessions and books, I got Book Creator. I have all the apps from Explain Everything, from videos to photos. I can do from Photoshoot, and I can make my own review books. I can share with iBooks or upload them right to the classroom for like a digital portfolio setup for my classmates, or I can do Edgy Clipper and make my own pin, and then the teacher can share them. I can take little resources and put them together, and I have it all right here. I mean, I could go on and on about different ones. There's no perfect way, but these work great for reviews. You can make flashcards, you can make annotation, voice recordings, books yourself, watch your videos, do your voice notes, as well as put together your own pin boards to help you in Edgy Clipper. Those are what I recommend as great for making a 2-to-1 iPad that incorporates the best of a Chromebook with the Google Apps for Education and still does the power of an iOS device such as an iPad. If you have any other questions or want some suggestions or would like to try an idea, please contact me. I am on my blog here at Dice Up the Classroom. And you also can find me on, of course, on Twitter at Ryan7Reed. I'll see you later. Remember, dream big.